When you finally get a diagnosis, it feels like relief and fear all at once. You finally have a name, but sometimes that name becomes a cage. This episode is for anyone who has ever walked out of a doctor's office feeling both validated and more confused than ever. But maybe you are the person who is still desperately searching for that diagnosis. You haven't had that validation yet. In that case, this episode is going to save you time, energy, and potentially some sorrow in your healing journey. Welcome to the Even You Can Get Well podcast. My name is Felicia Desjardins. I am your holistic health practitioner. I'm a certified holistic nutritional consultant, registered bioenergetic practitioner, and a thyroid success coach for the incredible Dr. Rochelle Vong. And I am here really to revolutionize healthcare. I walked through the horrendous journey of chronic illness. I know what it is to feel left alone, to have to figure out your health on your own, without or outside of the medical system. And it's a confusing journey. So today, we're going to kind of hone in on this topic of diagnosis. When your diagnosis becomes your cage, how to use the labels to heal, not to limit you. So many of you might know it took over 2 years in my disease journey to finally actually get a diagnosis. And when I did, it was this brief moment of utter relief. I was validated. I wasn't crazy. There was an answer. And then the reality of a broken medical system hit me all over again. Yes, I was validated, which in and of itself was really healing, but there was no clear path forward. There was no magical treatment. And like many of you, I knew that a life of prescriptions and drugs wasn't going to actually make me better. It was just going to band-aid symptoms while creating more dysfunction and more symptoms. So I knew that that wasn't an option for me. That wasn't a treatment plan to me. So here's the truth that I had to learn the hard way, a truth I now get to walk my clients through so that they don't get trapped in the cage of a diagnosis. So listen carefully. I want you to write this down. This can change your healing journey. A diagnosis explains what is happening, not necessarily why. A diagnosis is the starting point. It provides clues that can propel your healing journey in the right direction. It is not the end point answer that leads to resolution. I want you to rewind and listen to that definition again. You need to understand a diagnosis in the right context in order to use it to overcome disease. And you need to be working with professionals who know how to do that as well. Listen, I was eventually diagnosed with Lyme disease, but what did that really mean? Well, I thought it was the answer to all my problems. I wish I knew then what I know now, that it wasn't. A diagnosis isn't supposed to be the only answer that you ever get. I didn't know it then, but it pointed to the deeper dysfunction that needed to be addressed. And from a holistic lens, having Lyme disease or really any pathogenic infection, let's say maybe you have SIBO, maybe you have dysbiosis, maybe you're concerned about parasites, maybe you have a long-lasting virus. It means that there is a dysfunction or imbalance in the immune system, leaving you open to infection. Okay, that's root level. And from this root level understanding, there are a number of practical assumptions that we can then make about the body. 1, an infection means that there is some level of inflammatory process going on. 2, inflammatory process means that the adrenals are put under additional stress. 3, upregulation of cortisol from those stressed out adrenals leads to impaired digestive function, gut inflammation, and potentially microbiome imbalance. 4, we know that microbiome imbalance, think a lack of probiotics here, right, leads to neurotransmitter imbalances, which translates to anxiety, depression, mental health issues. Do you see where I'm going here? In my situation, Lyme disease was just one layer. And that pathogen needed to be addressed and properly eliminated from my body. Absolutely. But this diagnosis of Lyme points to so many other deeper imbalances that need to be addressed for complete healing to take place. Now, what does that look like for you? Well, what's your diagnosis? Or beyond a diagnosis, what do your symptoms tell you about your body, about the deeper issues? What does your diagnosis tell you about what's going on inside? Okay, I want to stress here, it's not reliant on you having a diagnosis. Okay, that's the good news. We can look at your symptoms and your history along with some testing to see, okay, what are the deeper issues? So let me give you some examples here. Let's look at Hashimoto's, right? This is the autoimmune disease of the thyroid. It points to immune confusion, right? Autoimmune. It points to gut permeability, and it points to chronic stress, be that psychological or physical. Let's look at another example. Maybe you have SIBO. We know that this points to motility issues, which speaks to your nervous system. We know that it could potentially point to dysbiosis. If you listened to my episode on SIBO and dysbiosis, you'll know that. It also, again, points to stress and points to nutrient depletion, okay? Those are just a couple deeper issues. Let's look at anxiety. Well, anxiety can be linked to histamine release. It can be linked to hormone imbalance. It can be linked to gut-brain axis issues, and it can be linked to trauma. And likely, there's a number of those things going on. And that's the key. Understanding what are those root causes? What are those root level? What's happening in the physiology? Now, what a diagnosis is and isn't. So what a diagnosis is, I want this to be clearly understood. A diagnosis is a label describing a cluster of symptoms. It is a name for a pattern the body is showing. It is a starting point, not a complete explanation. It is a door that opens the way to further investigation. Okay, those are 4 great points. And if you're wondering, how am I supposed to be using my diagnosis? Those are 4 points that are great to write down to remind yourself. These are another couple points that you should write down. What a diagnosis is not. Okay, very important. I want you to hear me. For anybody dealing with any diagnosis, or if you don't yet have your diagnosis, doesn't matter. A diagnosis is not a personality trait. It is not a life sentence. It is not a reflection of who you are. It is not, listen very closely, it is not a complete picture of your health. And last one, also very important, it is not a roadmap for how to heal. In our broken medical system today, we are taught to see a diagnosis as our complete picture, as a life sentence, as the road. And I'm going to ask you today, has your diagnosis become your cage? Do you, here's a couple questions to ask. Do you feel like you are the disease? Do you hope that fixing this one thing will solve everything? Do you fall into the trap of thinking that the diagnosis is the root cause? That's really important. I see so many people fall into this. I got diagnosed with whatever, and now I'm going to, do this drug or this treatment plan to correct it. You're not looking deep enough. Last question, have you become addicted to researching the condition instead of supporting and correcting the body's underlying imbalances? So many of you, I know because I was there, and I see so many women do this. You are addicted to the research of that single condition, focusing in, honing in on that single condition, instead of letting that condition lead you to the underlying issues. So I'm going to ask you again, based on those questions, if you were able to say, yep, that's me, has your diagnosis become your cage? You were meant for healing and freedom. So let me help you break free from that cage right now. Let's take a look through the functional lens, identifying the root systems. So, like I explained earlier, you need to use the diagnosis to help identify the root systems that need support. Okay, the systems that have become imbalanced, allowing this diagnosis, this cluster of symptoms, to manifest. Think about the diagnosis as the effect, not the cause. Okay, if we can do that, we don't do that today. But if we can do that, if we can say, okay, this cluster of symptoms, this diagnosis, is the effect of these other things, now we're using a diagnosis in the right way. So here are 7 core systems that you need to take stock of. Are these 7 systems healthy? Which one of these systems, or which couple of these systems, or maybe all of them, which ones have become imbalanced, leading to symptoms and to eventually a diagnosis? So number 1, nervous system regulation. Okay. Number 2, immune balance. Number 3, gut integrity. How's that gut health? Number 4, hormone and adrenal balance. We're all dealing in this stressful world with some form, usually, of adrenal issues because it is a stressful world today. Number 5, detox and liver pathways. This is really, really important. We can view the liver and our detox pathways as the gateway to our body. Number 6, mitochondrial energy. That's deep-rooted stuff. We want to look at cellular health. Number 7, very important, often not addressed, emotional and spiritual resilience. So again, use your diagnosis as a clue, not as a map. But once you identify the root systems that are dysfunctional or imbalanced, well, now you can build your roadmap. So when a woman comes to see me and she tells me she has been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, for example, right there, that diagnosis gives me so much insight to the dysregulation within her immune system. But then I'm going to go through the other root systems. Is there nervous system dysregulation? Is there further immune imbalance? Is there gut integrity issues? Is there hormone and adrenal imbalance? Is there detox and liver pathway issues, mitochondrial dysfunction, and emotional or spiritual? Are there traumas or lies that are keeping that person's physiology caught in disease? Again, that's a big part often missed. So I'm going to use her symptoms and an understanding of her history and her story, but I'm also going to use the appropriate testing to pinpoint where the root causes are stemming from. So I've identified an immune dysfunction. Maybe I've also discovered that she has dysbiosis and insulin resistance. And maybe she identifies that she believes that she doesn't deserve to be well. That's a big one. Now we can make a roadmap to start correcting all of these imbalances and working through the lies. And that is when you start to see changes. That is what it means to use your diagnosis to heal instead of letting your diagnosis become your cage. So if you're navigating a diagnosis and feel stuck, you're not alone. If you have let your diagnosis, like anxiety or hypothyroidism or infertility, become your cage, there is a way out for you. I want you to hear me. There is freedom for you. That is why I'm called Even You, because even you can get well. If you are still desperately searching for a diagnosis, good news, you're not behind. You need to look at the root systems and correct the underlying imbalances. And you can start with looking at, what do your symptom pictures represent? What do they mean? If you need help getting out of the cage of a diagnosis or getting out of the cage of illness, there is a link in the notes and in the description of this podcast to book a session with me or email me to chat. And you can chat with me about hopping on a free 30-minute video call. I'm happy to meet with you, take 30 minutes and chat about what you're going through. I'm also going to leave some links for social media in the description, Facebook, Instagram. And I want you to get involved with this podcast. I want to hear what topics you want me to discuss. I didn't want to make this one very long today because it really doesn't need to be. I think we covered everything we needed to in this short time. And I just hope you can walk away understanding that you can use a diagnosis, you can use a cluster of symptoms to identify root causes. And those diagnoses do not have to be cages. So if you know someone who's drowning in a diagnosis right now, send them this episode. If that's you, reach out to me. I'm here to support you through this. We're here to together revolutionize healthcare, and I'm here to see even you get well. So I can't wait to come back and film the next podcast and share more tools and knowledge and expertise to help even you get well. Leave comments on my Instagram, on my Facebook. Message me if you want me to talk about a certain topic. Say, Felicia, hey, I've been struggling with this. Can you answer these questions in your next podcast? Happy to do that. Okay, I will chat with you all in the next podcast. Bye, everyone.